Okay, we've got two more to go in terms of our API error response handling, and that's the edit and the delete activity. Now we need to check in both of these commands to see if we do find the activity in our database, and if we don't, then we need to send back an appropriate response. Obviously a 404 not found would be the appropriate response in that case. Let's start with the delete activity. And we'll go to our delete handler, and once again we're going to be returning a results object back of type units. And we'll need to bring in application core. And we'll also need to specify that we're returning a result of type units in here, and also as the task as well. So we're going to specify results of type units. Now in this one we need to obviously check to see if this activity is null, because our find async method is going to return null if it doesn't find it in a database. So what we need to do is check to see if we have the activity, and check to see if the activity is null specifically. So what do we return in this case though? Because we can't return a result of units.success in this case, because it looks a bit weird if we did it this way, and well, what do we put in here? We could specify null, and this doesn't work. Our result of type unit cannot return null. We cannot convert from null to units. So what we'll do in this case is we'll add another condition, and we'll simply say if our activity is null, then we're going to return null. And that means our result object is going to be null. And what we can do is we can head back to our base API controller, and we can add an additional condition here, and we can check to see if the result itself is null. And if it is, then we can simply return not found, and that will handle that particular condition as well. And if we go back to our delete, then we can finish off adding the logic inside here. So once again we can test to see if our save change has been successful. So we can say var result equals, and then save changes is greater than 0, and if the result is false, then we can return results of type unit and specify failure, and we can just say failed to delete the activity. And then after this we can return results of type unit.success, and then we can return unit.value. And everything looks good. So then we can go back to our activities controller, and once again we can simply return handle results, and all of our API error responses should be handled inside here now. So let's do a quick test. We'll go back to Postman, and we've got a request to delete a non-existent activity, and if we click send, then we get the 404 not found. And if we go and find an activity to delete, let's just pick one of our activities inside here. Let's just click on send to get all of the activities. And let's find the one that was null, and we'll delete this one. We'll get the GUID, and then we'll go and delete the activity and overwrite this GUID and click on send, and we get the 200 OK, and we should find that that activity has now disappeared from our list. And indeed it has. And then we just need to do the same thing for our edit activity. So we'll head back to VS Code again, and this time we'll go to our edit handler. And once again we need to return a result of type unit, and bring in application core, and then scroll down to our handler and add results unit in there, and then do the same for the task and say results of type units. And then we can just do the same thing again. We can test to see if the activity is null. So we'll say if the activity is equal to null, then we can return null. And then we go through and we map our activity, and once again we can test the result here. So we'll say var result equals, and we'll test to make sure the number of changes is greater than 0, and we can say if results with the exclamation mark, we can return results of type units dot failure, and then we can say failed to update activity. And then we can return the result of type units dot success, and we can pass back units dot value. And then we can go back to our activities controller, and once again we're just going to do the same thing again. We're just going to swap OK for handle result. So let's do a slightly different test for the activity, because if we send up an activity that's unchanged, then there shouldn't be any changes to be saved to the database, and we should make sure that we get our failure response back from that one. So let's head back to Postman, and if we go and choose the edit an activity, and we'll need to go and get one of our activities again, and let's pick on the last one, test create activity, and I'll go and get the GUID and pass it into this edit activity correct and overwrite this too with the GUID, and this has all of the fields inside here. So let's click on send, and we get the 200 OK. Now this activity date is going to change all the time, so what I'm going to do is just go back to the get activities, and I'm going to copy the date as it is exactly as the string, and go back to the edit activity and just swap the Postman created date with this one, and I'll click on send again to update the activity again. We get the 200 OK, but if we try this again without actually any fields changing, then this time we get the failed to update activity, and that's what we're looking for. So it's a bit of work to get here in terms of handling our HTTP error responses, but now we've done that piece of work, then it's quite easy inside our handlers to handle the relevant logic whenever we need to handle a failure case. And our API controllers are just automatically going to handle that based on the code in the base API controller. So what we need to take a look at next is what we do with exceptions. These are just HTTP error responses, but we also need to handle exceptions in our application, and we'll take a look at how we do that next.